Hi, I'm John,
And I'm Paul.
and this is the Minute Podcast.
If you give a mouse a cookie, I'm pretty sure he'd write a book. But give us 60 seconds of footage and we'll tell you where to look. With a concept this simplistic, it's hard to say if it'll last. But give us just a minute and we'll give you a podcast. The Minute Podcast. Great, thanks for joining us for another episode. As you may know by now, the Minute Podcast is a weekly conversation between John and myself where a listener sends us a piece of content. Maybe it's from a movie or a TV show, or I guess this counts as a TV show this week. And we talk about it. We try to figure out what's happening, how they got there, and what we think is going to happen next. John, what are we watching this week?
So this week we're watching a clip from Wrestlemania. It was not defined which WrestleMania, but specifically something called Shane vs. Vince McMahon WrestleMania. And specifically we're watching the 17th minute even. Great.
And this week we're brought to you by Peripheral Vision, fine makers of what the hell was that since 1904. Visit peripheralvision.com for more information today.
I just feel like I end up chuckling at the end of your little, the little ad. I think
it takes more work than anything else I do for the episode.
It's fantastic. It's my favorite part, frankly.
Good.
All right. So, gotta pull up the old script here. Okay, so today we're gonna be talking about WrestleMania and I guess wrestling in general. We've already covered our personal level of understanding of wrestling. I feel like we don't necessarily need to go into deep detail. We both grew up in the 90s. We both seem like we didn't really have much of an experience with wrestling growing up, right?
True. Did you recognize which one of these fellows was Vince McMahon, though?
I assume the one with the horrible haircut was a McMahon, because I happen to know at least enough that the McMahons seem to have Trump haircuts, so right. Because they're Trump supporters, so it fits.
As far as I know, they definitely are. Okay, so it sounds like we both then maybe could guess which one was Vince, but that's about the maximum level of our understanding.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, to set the scene a little bit, we open on to what appears to be a fairly jacked middle-aged man in a wrestling ring, holding a trash can over his head, standing in front of a younger man, which we'll get into later. But John, I think for this particular episode, it could be really fun if we did a script reading.
Okay, for this particular episode, yes.
Yeah, just this time.
All right.
So the roles that we'll be playing, then I will be both announcers number 1 and number 2,
and I will be the crowd.
Okay, awesome. Let's give it a go. Wait a minute. Linda rose from her chair. Linda rose from her chair. Oh! Right into the McMahon family jewels. Linda rose from the chair. And now McFarland, after being hit with the steel chair, opening up on Mr. McMahon. But how can the referee beat the crap out of one of the opponents? This is unfair. Go tell Foley it's unfair. Hey Foley, it's unfair. The hardcore legend and former champion, the best wrestler ever, writing another chapter in the book. Linda was not heavily sedated here today.
And scene.
It's beautiful, John.
All right.
Some of the best simulated crowd noise I think I've seen since FIFA 1998.
Okay, I'm proud of that. Then I think that's something I could. Would you, Paul? Could I dedicate you specifically to writing that on my headstone when I die?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
In bold Sharpie.
Oh God.
Yeah. Okay, so the listener might not fully understand what was happening during this scene.
I thought it was rather explicit, but okay.
Okay. Well, just to... I guess I could talk through what's happening just so we have a sort of cohesive narrative a little bit. The older gentleman, who we are both pretty sure is Vince McMahon, is about to hit Shane. We're pretty sure it's Shane anyway because he's the other titular character.
I'm pretty sure Shane... Yeah. I'm pretty sure Shane is just like a hockey fan that randomly wandered onto the wrestling rink.
It's possible. I wonder if Shane is Vince's son, but I don't actually know enough to be sure.
I mean, it would certainly hint to like the reason why Vince was injured in a very particular way in a few moments from now.
It's true. That's definitely true. So Vince is standing over Shane with his trash can, only to have Linda stand up very dramatically behind him. And Shane points to Linda, and at this point the crowd just goes wild.
Wait. He doesn't just point to her. He points to her in, like, the most, like, the weakest, like, the kid, like, is, like, passing out. He's, like, passing out while pointing over. Like, it's, like, this overhanded... Well. It's this overhanded sort of gesture towards another area of the stage. Or the ring? The wrestling ring, I'm assuming is what it's called.
I think we call it a ring.
Okay, yeah. The ring. Even though it's square, I'm just putting that out there.
It's fair, but you can't call it a wrestling square. That sounds weird.
That sounds like we don't know what we're talking about, Paul.
How dare you, John? We are experts in everything we discuss here, including the Catholic Church and hologram technology.
Exactly. All of these things.
Yep. So, after Shane gestures sort of wildly, Vince turns around, and what does Linda do to him, John?
Linda, I believe, kicks him in the bazongas.
My notes actually say nail him in the man meat, but I think it stands either way.
Nail him in the man meat. I didn't get these notes, Paul. I feel like you're holding out on me.
I didn't include them all this week, John. Okay. It's a roller coaster for you and the listener.
Okay. Man meat is very uncomfortable phrasing for that. But
certainly is.
Yeah. I also feel like bazongas is another word for tatas, so I'm not really sure I'm particularly right there. But
I think mine is more accurate, if more vulgar.
Let's say the lower sensitive region on a male.
Yes, that's fair, and everyone understands what that means. So, when Linda stands up, though, the crowd goes wild, just completely insane. And I guess that means she was not expected to stand up. She was meant to sit throughout this exchange.
Yes, I think so. They said something about, like, what was it? Linda rose from the chair. What was it? Linda was not heavily sedated here today.
Heavily sedated.
No, does the crowd expect this poor woman to be sedated the entire, like, bout?
I think so, and I think...
That's fucked up, Paul. Like, I feel like...
It's definitely fucked up, but maybe that falls into the how do we get here?
Okay.
Which we'll talk about in a little bit, but you're right. Everyone seems on board with the fact that she has been sedated.
Okay, now, is she sedated for her own health, or for the health of all of the gonads of the crowd? Like...
You know, I have a fairly complex theory about why she's sedated that we can get into in a little bit.
Okay.
But I think she was not a willing participant in the sedation.
No, probably not the sedation. I feel like she probably instigated the gonad kicking, though.
In that she kicked him in the gonads?
Yeah, in that exact thing, yes.
Oh, true. She was definitely a willing participant in the nad kicking.
Okay, you know? I just wanted to define where the the participation, the approval came from.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, it wasn't approved activity. I think we can get that far. So what happens immediately after the nad kickery, John?
Okay, Zach Galifianakis comes into the ring.
who is either named McFarland or Foley? I can't be exactly sure.
I'm pretty sure it's Galifianakis is how it's pronounced.
Okay, yeah, I'm probably just mispronouncing it.
Yeah, no, so bearded white dude comes in, who, strangely enough, looks like Zach Galifianakis, as all of us bearded white dudes do.
It's sort of true, and he's sort of dressed like a referee.
If a referee had stripes that went not only vertically, but also in only, like, half of the clothes he wore, like...
Yeah.
Like, he felt like he was somebody who, like, lazily dressed like a referee for Halloween without like checking what an actual referee picture looks like. But maybe like professional sports have a trademark on horizontal referee stripes. Are referee stripes horizontal or vertical? I feel like we don't watch enough
football,
sports.
they're vertical.
They're vertical. Okay,
Yeah,
never
I
mind,
know that.
Paul. I'm completely wrong. I did
Whereas in football, I'm not sure that they have stripes.
they're checkers.
Are they checkered?
No,
Okay.
I am completely lying. I have no idea.
You're European. That could have been true.
I did have a football draft today, so I'm basically an expert.
Although that was football, not football.
Yeah, football, not football.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to be clear for all of our European listeners.
Yeah.
Those
all
people.
of our European listeners.
Well, what does Zach Galifianakis do, though?
So Zach Galifianakis picks up the most immaculate trash can I've ever seen in my entire life.
Mm.
I would like to say, like, I would eat like a vial of like bubonic plague off this thing, expecting to be completely clean. Like that is
it's so clean that it makes me wonder a little bit if these might be prop trash cans.
No. I want to think that these are the plutonic ideals of trash cans.
Mm-hmm.
That the wrestling organization is the only people that are really putting the money into like the trash can industry.
It's trash can technology, big trash.
Exactly. Like I feel like we should all aspire to someday own a trash can that is so shiny that it literally blinds the camera at times.
It actually did. That's a good point. I didn't think to mention that. So what does he do with the trash can, though?
I think throws it at Vince McMahon.
I think he does, and then I think he punches him in the face about 13 times.
Oh, yes. And then also runs across the... I was about to say stage, but I meant ring.
Because it's real, so it's a ring.
Yes. He runs across the ring, and then he crotch knee thrusts into him.
I think it was pretty directly a crotch thrust.
But there was definitely, like, knee, I feel like is, like, I think the crotch brings the humiliation, but the knee actually brings, like, the pain.
The pain.
Right?
Yeah. I think he was bringing the pain and the humiliation with that move, that's true.
Exactly. It was a joint, it's like it slid from the knee into the crotch.
I think that's what it was, yeah. I really liked the exchange that the announcers were having during this, though. Announcer 2 just amazed at how unfair, or announcer 1 amazed at how unfair it is for a referee to really participate in this way. Even though I think the referee was knocked out earlier in the match, I'm assuming, because he was passed out on the ground, so I assume it's a retribution type deal.
The referee was?
Yeah, I think he was knocked out earlier from the text, because it says, what did we have here? After being hit with a chair or something?
Steel chair opening up on Mr. McMahon.
But so I think he was hit with a chair, probably by McMahon, and then knocked out earlier in the match, right?
Why is there so much family violence in wrestling? Like, we had brothers in the last one with the Hardys brothers.
Mm-hmm. Hardy versus Hardy.
Yeah, Hardys versus Hardys. And now we're with the McMahon family.
The McMahon, yeah.
The McMahon family, which I'm fairly certain basically own wrestling. Like, I'm fairly certain there's a large, like, exploitative industry that they run. And, and somehow they're, like, brutally beating one another. This feels...
It's interesting that they both participate and run the industry, though. It's kind of fascinating.
But not just that, but, like, let's say I want to get into wrestling. Where do I go for wrestling that doesn't involve family violence?
I think there's a warehouse down by the river.
Oh, okay, thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
That's the river. The river.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the river.
Just the river. Any river, really. Find a warehouse.
And there's probably going to be late night wrestling in it. Yeah. Underground, of course.
And it'll be super racist, I'm sure.
Well, that's probably true.
Is that a given?
I think it's a given. I think we learn a couple of things from the announcers during this groin smashing enterprise. First, that Foley is some sort of important character. He's some sort of wrestling hero, maybe, from the days of yore. I'm not exactly sure.
Or the adjudicator of the match.
It's interesting that he's both a referee and a former wrestler. You wouldn't think that'd be a natural career arc.
I mean, no? Like, is that not a natural... Like, I feel like...
I don't know enough to be sure.
You learn the sport, you become an expert, then you can, like, tell people off about it. Isn't that what refs do?
That's my understanding, but I was more of a tennis player, so I'm not sure it's the exact same dynamic. But the other thing that we learn is that Linda was sedated, as we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Raises a lot of questions.
It does.
Why was Linda sedated? Who sedated her? And why does she have a higher than anticipated tolerance to sedation? Apparently, I'm assuming she just was not sufficiently sedated.
So, okay, what kind of sedation are we assuming? Are we assuming, like a Mama's Little Helper sort of thing? Or are we thinking, like a literal, like, she was drugged? Like, roofied? Or are we thinking...
I think she was drugged.
No, there is a third thing.
Okay, what's the third option?
That she was originally in a rage. That she was going around and just, like, kicking people in the gonads. And
when they tranked her?
And they tranked her. I mean, that feels like the only, like...
That actually has a lot to do with my theory here, so...
That feels like the only understandable reason why she would be tranked or sedated. Like, being roofied just seems like...
Seems unlikely.
No, not unlikely. I mean, unfortunately, a little too likely. It just seems rather dark. Like, extremely fucking dark. Like, being tranked sounds more humorous. Because
I'm not sure this is a humorous exchange. No, it looks like some dramatic stuff.
No, this seems like something that, like, that poor hockey fan who was at the beginning beaten on the ground. Like, whatever his deal, he's going to be in therapy for a while.
It's probably true, although if I'm correct and he's a member of the McMahon family, then he's definitely going to be in therapy for a while either way. I
think just by having these people as relatives will in fact endanger his, like, psychological well-being for the foreseeable future.
I think so. I don't see how it couldn't.
No. All right.
Hair like that on your dad, I don't know.
So. How did we get here? And what happens next? That's what I want to know.
Well, I have a theory.
Okay, let's hear your theory.
My theory is that the older guy is Vince McMahon, and the younger guy is Shane McMahon. We don't know that to be confirmed, but that's my theory.
Okay.
And I think they were going to have a showdown to determine the future of the McMahon brand.
Okay.
Right?
We're back in this weird, like, family-owned brand territory.
I think we are. I think they were going to have a showdown at the property line. We never really figured out what that was from episode 2, so we're sticking with it.
It's
just a wrestling thing.
Property line is just wrestling jingo. Not jingo, lingo.
Lingo?
L is the correct consonant for that one.
That's the did you combine jargon and lingo? Is that what that was?
Paul, I have no answer for you for this one.
That's fair. All right, so they're planning to have a showdown at the property line. But then Linda shows up. I'm assuming maybe she's trying to help Shane. Maybe she's just trying to prevent the showdown. And then Vince has to sedate her to keep her out of the argument.
Okay.
Because then there's 2 people against him, right?
Yeah.
So what he does is he sedates her with a blow dart soaked in iocane powder.
Iocane?
Little does Vince know that she's spent the last several years building up an immunity to iocane powder, with this exact situation in mind, also motivated by her fear of Sicilians, right?
Yes.
Okay. But she saw this coming well enough to have her former wrestler henchman, Foley, also known as that Galifianakis, placed there as the referee. That way, even if she was sufficiently drugged or sedated, Foley could still step in and stop Vince from seizing the ultimate power over the McMahon brand. I think she did not specifically ask Foley to shove his besweat-panted groin in Vince's face, but that she's okay with it.
Fuck, Paul.
That's my theory.
Do you write for, like, the WrestleMania Incorporated organization? Like,
No, I don't, I would
freaking watch that.
Well, it's also mostly the plot of Princess Bride.
No,
The Princess Bride.
There's like a section. Good artists borrow, great artists steal, Paul. Like, that's what I tell my students all the time.
Well, but that's not the end of the story here, John.
Okay. Okay. Never mind. I did not mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah, the story continues. Foley actually seizes power, though. As the last man standing, he becomes Foley McMahon, and he commits some horrible atrocities within the WrestleMania kingdom. Right. I don't know exactly what horrible atrocities are to WrestleMania. I assume it's like not refilling the nacho cheese in the vending machines.
Okay.
But that can be open to debate.
So
but then
I wanted to kind of...
It's not over.
Okay. Keep going.
Then the McMahon family, all three of them, Linda, Shane, and Vince, have to work together to dethrone Foley McMahon in the name of WrestleMania fans everywhere.
So the world that you're proposing, Paul,
mm-hmm.
is McMahon in fact a title instead of an actual surname?
Well, I think it becomes a title as part of the Vince McMahon dynasty.
Okay. So in order to become a McMahon, you simply have to, like, crush a McMahon between your thighs?
Well, you have to defeat all of the other McMahon.
Okay. So
and then you are the McMahon.
The McMahon.
Yeah.
I feel like we're talking about, like, a new burger or something. But
I don't think I'd eat the McMahon.
No, I would prefer not to eat a McMahon. This is beautiful, Paul. I feel like this should be written. Like, if this is not what this is, then I don't know why it exists. Like if this is not the beautiful, like, story, almost Shakespearean drama that we're experiencing here, then it just shouldn't be.
Well, if one of the listeners wants to turn it into a short story and tweet it at us at MinutePod, I'm open to that.
Tweet one of 654.
We'll make it a very short story.
A very short story. 100 yeah. How many? 140 characters?
I thought it was 144.
Sure.
The point is, our Twitter is great. We know how to use it.
Yeah.
And you should follow us.
We know it. We also have Facebook. Anyway, so the summary is, I want you to summarize it. I don't think I can summarize this, Paul. I feel like this is too epic of a story for me to just, like, off the cuff summarize. So what is this about? Like, what is the entire drama of this about? Like,
the entire show?
Give me the big picture. Not WrestleMania. I feel like if you know what American wrestling is, then you probably have a generally good idea of what WrestleMania is. I mean this WrestleMania. Whatever the hell WrestleMania this is.
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania 1984, whatever it is.
John, as you know, each WrestleMania is really a collection of short stories. And this WrestleMania, the theme is family. Family coming together to defeat a common enemy despite their differences and the difficulties they have, because it may not be perfect, but sometimes family is all you've got.
Okay. I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah.
As a summation. That was strangely touching.
Well, do you have a theory on the episode, John?
At this point, I have no idea what to think about this episode. I feel like you've blown my mind, Paul. I'm like that last picture in that meme, that visual meme that everyone knows that I'm able to reference over audio so easily.
Oh, that meme.
Yes, that meme.
Yeah, I love that meme. Yeah. Well, John, maybe you can tell us whether or not you recommend WrestleMania more broadly, but in particular this WrestleMania.
Okay, so this is difficult because I feel like I want to keep watching because I want to know what the hell this is about and whether or not you're right, because if you're right, Paul, I feel like I should be a wrestling fan. Like, if you're right, I'm just into it. Like,
yeah,
this is the sort of like soap opera-y drama that I want from my WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So if it's true, then I recommend it. But like, given all the information I have right now, I can't necessarily recommend somebody watches this because it's really just like rather expected fare. Like, there's a, I mean, it's really creepy that she's sedated during this bout, right? Like, that's messed up. And then the fact that like she just wakes up and kicks somebody in the gonads, and then Zach Galifianakis is there, and I don't know. It I don't really understand it, so I can't really recommend it on that. But I'm going to investigate this further, personally. How about you, Paul?
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I recommend this particular minute to anyone at home.
Yeah.
So if you want to check out, if you want to check out the notes, we probably have a link in there where you can find this clip. Jump to minute 17, watch it unfold, and maybe watch the next couple minutes. Tell us if I'm right about where this plot arc's going.
God, I hope you're right.
I hope I am too. I recommend this episode to anyone who is 12 years old, definitely.
Certainly.
Anyone who's quite drunk.
Yes.
But beyond that, I'm not sure. I think it's a case-by-case basis. You should know if you're the sort of person who wants to watch WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
All right, well, was there anything else really pressing from the minute, John? It gave us a lot of visuals, a lot of crowd reaction, and I think it was a great one.
I mean, I think one of the weird things that I saw in the background is like there's obviously like the Texas flag with a skull. There's somebody with a wrestling belt out in the crowd, which seems kind of messed up. Like, why aren't they like in there wrestling? And then not only that, but there seems to be a sign that just says Michelle. Like there's a lot of questions there. I can't really say that there's a lot to expand upon. But I am intrigued. I assume this is taking place in Texas because of the skull Texas flag thing.
It seems offensive if not in Texas.
The skull is in fact replacing the star, in case anybody was wondering.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. All right. So.
All right. Well, I guess maybe that's it, John, unless you have anything else.
No, I think that's it. A special thanks to Corbin, a.k.a. Lion Yeti, for submitting this minute.
What a minute it was.
It was.
If you want
a good one.
Yeah, if you want to support the podcast, you can review us on iTunes or wherever you download the podcast. You can reach out to us at theminutepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @minutepod, or search Minute Podcast on Facebook. You can probably find us that way. This episode, as always, was hosted by John Ward and Patrick Reberg. Nope, fucked that up. Paul Reberg and John Ward. Who the hell's Patrick Reberg? We'll fix that in post. It's fine.
Your brother?
Yep, my brother Patrick. Hosted by John Ward and Paul Reberg. Produced by John Ward with theme music by Paul Reberg. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Holy crap, you made it to the end. We'll be back next week to do it all again. Until then, be well and be sure to take a minute. The Minute Podcast.